everyone. Thank you so much for coming today. It's so exciting to see this community from the healthcare and health tech space grow. As Aman was saying, this is a dream that Aman had quite some time ago, and now seeing that it's all happening right now. And we have been thinking of having a talk on AI in healthcare for a while. And that's when we crossed path with Mahshid Yassaei.
Yeah.
And Mahshid is the founder of Tali Ai, as we just told you about. I let Mahshid start off talking about what's Tali Ai and how you began the journey on that side.
Sure. I want to start by saying why I was laughing when you said my last name. We're sitting here and he said, how do I say your last name? And I said, pretend it's a Japanese name, say Yassaei. And he said, no, I speak Arabic, I can say it perfectly. So Tali is really a spin-off of my first business, Evenset. The initial research phase happened in 2019, but we really started I started focusing on it full-time in 2020. The history, because it starts from Evenset, let me tell you a little bit about that. Evenset was a software company focused in healthcare and medical space, so we worked with large hospitals like CAMH or Unity Health to smaller startups to government agencies and build solutions from the ground up for them. But at some point we learned about the problem, which really shocked us, to be honest. So the problem is that 10 to 15 hours of a physician's time per week is spent in data entry into software. And I was like, no, this is an exaggeration. It cannot be true. I started interviewing a lot of physicians, and they were like, no, it's actually a lot more than that. And so because it's a very frustrating part of their work, it actually feels like it's taking over all of their schedule during the week. So that's one where we started focusing on Tali. So the problem is when you go see your doctor, as patients, the way we experience this is that we go see our doctor and they turn their back to us, they start typing everything you say. And it was like the first few times, like, is she Googling my questions or symptoms? What is she typing? And so they need to take a full note of everything you're saying, which is the subjective part of the note. The objective is all the measurements that happen in the room and all the observations by your doctor. The assessment, which is they will say, I think it might be X or Y, and the plan is, let's do a CBC test or let's send you to an MRI and see what happens. So they need to organize their notes based on all of these details for a few reasons. One being that probably the biggest one is the billing. When they submit to the government to get reimbursed for the visit they just did, they need to have the note ready. The other thing is the liability, which is very big for physicians. And then in addition to that long history they need to write, then there's a lot of click here, add this to the medication, click there, add this to the... So what Tali does today is that you walk into the room with your doctor, they will ask for your consent, then they hit the record button. Tali will listen to the whole conversation and transcribe the whole conversation. But not just that, we then take the full transcription and synthesize it into all of these parts that we just talked about. And when your clinician approves, we update the chart automatically. And there's a lot of follow-up tasks that happens from that, like filling out forms, the billing. It's a lot of work that happens before the patient walks into the room. And all of this can now be effectively solved with AI.
Perfect. It's an amazing space you're in, and I want to take you a little back from Evenset. Mm-hmm. You were saying you co-founded and you led that team.
Yeah.
I know that you have been doing quite a bit of work with Evenset in the healthcare space as well, but why did you choose healthcare as the domain? Is there anything that
No, I like to say that I'm passionate about healthcare, but no, my background, I am passionate about healthcare too. My background is data security and cryptography. And my first job at BlackBerry was also as a security engineer. And I was just finding my ways into industries that where the data protection is the bar for data protection is really high, and that's usually finance or healthcare. And between the two, the choice was obvious. And beside that is my co-founder, his PhD and his whole background is in bio stuff. So it was a good intersection of the two backgrounds.
Excellent. Now, again, taking back to 2020, this was a time when AI was, it's still being considered as, not anytime soon. Mm-hmm. How did you think about, what happened when you decided to jump into this side of things?
We got lucky. We got the initial funding from Public Health Agency to run 6 months of research on the state-of-the-art NLP algorithms and see if the accuracies were high enough for the vision that we had. As you said, 2020, very early days of LLMs in general, so I think the best was BERT at the time, and the accuracies were ridiculously low compared to what we see today. In fact, a few physicians I was talking to, they would say, it's not artificial intelligence, it's artificial stupidity. But the models were really struggling to meet the accuracy standards of healthcare. But we got the initial funding from public health to build a prototype and fine-tune the models a little bit, so that they would be good enough for us to continue the discovery. And when we were doing the discovery was when Well Health, they're the largest clinic owner in Canada and one of the largest EMR providers. They got interested. Their vision were very similar to ours. So they took our whole pre-seed round, but more importantly, they partnered with us for over 2 years to co-design and co-build the solution with their clinicians. And we were in the middle of our pilots and studies when the new generation of LLMs hit the market, and that really changed everything.
I'm now curious about when you said the EMR side, the EHR side as well. Tell us a little bit about the integrations that you have currently with Tali Ai.
Yeah, so one of the biggest questions we were getting early days of so the vision I was pitching to investors and partners all was that this is going to be like Siri on top of EMRs. Just imagine you say, do this, do that, and it will take care of all of that. And everybody was like, obviously, but can you do that first in terms of accuracy? And second, how are you going to convince an EMR company that they have shown historically to be very difficult to work with? How are you going to convince them to integrate with your solution? So EMR companies, we got really lucky in every few cases, and then after that it was easy. With Well Health, I think it was just the vision of the leaders. They saw the opportunity. They wanted to be part of the future and building it. So they have a few of I think they're the third largest in Canada. But then with TELUS Health, which is the largest EMR provider in Canada, I think they have about 55 to 60% of the Canadian primary care. One of their physician leaders was using Tali in his own clinic, and he advocated for us all the way. Like it took almost 2 years to sign the contract with them. I actually cried when we signed with TELUS Health. But I think the main reason was that we had such a strong advocate inside the organization that was not doing it because we were paying him or anything, because he actually thought this is the future and this product works. And then after that, the other EMRs were much easier.
Interesting that you were saying about someone at Well Health advocating for you. How do you think about physicians? They are the primary users of your platform. How are they? How did they start advocating for you, and how are they doing right now? How are you seeing that side of things? Mm-hmm.
We knew physicians have very tight communities. They go to vacation with each other. They go to each other's weddings. They spend time together. They have dinner together. They spend so much time together. So one, they have very tight communities. Second is that they are very strong people in the organizations that they work for. So if a physician works in a clinic, they're not just another person working in the clinic. They're everything to that clinic. So their voice matters a lot. But we really got surprised by how strong was the advocacy of physicians when it came to a problem they really struggled with. It was really killing them. A lot of them were actually leaving their jobs, going to resignation because of the burden of documentation, and a solution that actually works, plus a little bit of an excitement of AI that was happening in early 2023, 2024. And a lot of physicians, these are smart people, passionate people, they want to be at the forefront of this technology, and they would see this work, start talking about it non-stop in their groups. It's interesting, like even to this day, the largest source of new business to us is referral. Like we have a marketing team, we have a business development, but still physicians are doing most of the work for us. But it's interesting that when we started leveraging that advocacy, we were not successful. We started saying, oh, if you guys are referring us already, maybe if you give you an incentive, you would refer us more. So we're like, maybe 20% discount for you, 20% discount for the physician you send. Nobody used that discount code. So I think the learning for us was that a lot of this for physicians was just about the recognition of, hey, there is a solution and I want the problems across my colleagues and friends to be solved. We do get the credit for the advocacy, and we don't get the credit for the reason that we could not make it as strong as it is with any kind of leverage.
Of course. There's something that I was referring back to when I was watching in another place when you were talking about Tali Ai. That Tali Ai is giving back 50 hours of a 50 years?
50 years of a full-time physician, yeah.
50 years of a full-time physician's time back to the healthcare in Canada. And that's just in 2025, you're saying?
Just in 2025, yeah.
That's amazing. How is that, how is that helping? Tell me a little bit about how physicians are looking at your product and how they are feeling once they start using it.
So the anecdotes that we hear from physicians is that it helps them save 2 hours, give or take something, every day. So the physicians that their type of visits are different, or they don't visit as many patients, they might save closer to 1 hour a day. Some physicians are saving about 3 hours a day. Just imagine what you can do with an additional 3 hours a day. A lot of them are using the time to visit more patients. And some of them just decide to go home and rest and be refreshed when they come back the day after. You asked about what?
How they are feeling. I mean,
how they definitely consistently saying that the cognitive burden of having to remember all those details during the visit so they can actually document is significantly relieved. They all appreciate the time saved, and they appreciate that the note is a lot more detailed. Something they used to do was that they would call this pajama time. Pajama time is when you take the rest of the documentation back home. All the kids and their spouse are to bed, and you open the laptop and start continuing to finish the forms and editing the notes. This is already obviously frustrating, but at that point you have forgotten some of the details and nuances of the conversation you had with your patient. Whereas with Tali, all the details are already documented. You can always go back to it, and you can always go back to the full transcription of the conversation if you don't remember part of the note. So they feel a lot more relieved and confident and more present with their patients as well.
And I hear that some of them who are planning to retire early are thinking of coming back into the healthcare system and provide more healthcare for the Canadian community. That's awesome to hear. Now let's switch a gear a little bit. Tali AI is not the only AI scribe in market.
What do you mean?
So how do you think is Tali AI considering the landscape shaping up right now?
Yeah, so you're right. I think our space is usually described as one of the most competitive markets ever. And I think that speaks about the opportunity and the size of the opportunity. I think it's been very rare that in healthcare the problem has been so aggressive, and the size of the market, obviously globally, but also even if we just look at North America, is so massive. And the barrier to entry with the new LLMs dropped significantly. If we were spending like 2-3 years from 2020 to 2023 fine-tuning these algorithms and increasing the accuracy 1% by about 1%, in 2023 everybody hit an accuracy that was acceptable. So as a result, there are so many competitors, and I would have to say, non-arrogantly, a lot of noise in our space. And noise is when somebody thinks they would, this is easy, I can do it as well. They start doing it, but then after 6 months, a year, they realize, it wasn't as easy as I thought. But during that year, you still have to explain to everybody how you're different from these 100 other companies. So yes, very, very competitive. But when we look at healthcare, on the other hand, healthcare is not just one piece. There's so many different parts into healthcare, from large healthcare systems and hospitals to primary care to each specialty to allied health like physical therapy and mental health. So there's a lot of opportunity for a specialization that we have already started seeing in this space. But it is very natural that in the early days of the market, it might seem like 100 people are rushing toward an opportunity.
I think there was in one of our events, I remember someone telling that you should be careful about Microsoft. There's going to be a time when Microsoft try and put something in the market.
Yeah.
And I think it was just a month ago or so when Microsoft launched something in collaboration with someone. How is that affecting Tali AI's perspective of the market, or in the long run, how are you finding that? Is that a direct competition, or is it something that you are thinking as a co-opetitor in the market, helping you grow the market together?
Mm-hmm. So Microsoft has been in healthcare for a long time through the acquisition of this company called Nuance, which was basically a dictation tool. So physicians would actually hold a piece of hardware in their hand and they would dictate word by word into the software to complete their notes. I think they had a vast majority of healthcare systems across the world, I think, through that Nuance solution. So I think they had the right to this space. And I think the bet was that they would not be able to move as fast. So they did move very fast because of their partnership with OpenAI. The focus area they have, and the focus area that some of the larger players in this space, like Amazon, has a healthcare solution as well, focusing on this area. They are looking at, as I said, very large healthcare systems. For us, the focus area is primary care and outpatient clinics. The outpatient clinics is basically where you walk into a clinic, you get your work done, and then they leave, versus like a hospital where you stay there. The workflows are different, the type of service you get is different. And when we talk about the specialization, the other thing is around the market you are focusing on. We are very protective of our leadership in Canada. And the way we were going about that is that there are so many of these workflows that are local to Canada. The billing code and the billing process, as an example, is very local to every country, but also every province. So the billing process in Ontario is different than of BC. And a multinational organization like Microsoft cannot really optimize for that specific workflow. Or our medical search is really designed to get answers from all the Canadian medical resources, which is another differentiation. And we're actually working on giving physicians CME credits for the research that they do in Canada. So these are the things that are that you get by focusing on a market and protecting that market, which I still bet that an organization like Microsoft or Epic, as we were just talking about, that are getting into the space, cannot afford to get into and effectively compete.
Of course, Microsoft is a different league, well, Tali Ai, but you know the focus of the market is it's of importance. I know we have quite a bit of people who are building in AI today in the audience, and you know, if it's not 2020, it's 2025. What tip would you give, or what suggestion would you tell these builders out there who are building in the AI space in healthcare?
I think we are all still learning the dynamics of post-AI business building. Everything is different, to be honest. Like the investors space and how you raise funds has changed. But I think the one lesson or one point I keep reminding myself is that with everything that's happening right now and all the tools available, unfortunately excuses don't carry much weight anymore, because there's so much validation in the early days of a company that you can get without having an investor backing you or having a team helping you. So getting from 0 to 1, I think, has become significantly easier. Or for you to know that this is not the path. Like if you cannot get from 0 to 1 in a short period of time, that should give you enough lesson learned to pivot quickly, which was different before. Like it would take maybe a year or 2 years. Actually, for us, it took about a year and a half to abandon medical search as our core offering. To like, this is not what physicians care about. We still have it as a component of the product, but at some part of the journey of Tali, we're like, maybe this is the core functionality. It took us a long time to validate that or disvalidate that. So I think if I were to start now, I would really educate myself on all the opportunities that are out there to validate or disvalidate my idea much, much faster with lower resources, I guess.
Thank you for that. I mean, that's an amazing tip for everyone, including myself, I would say. I mean, there's a plethora of AI options and opportunities in the market to learn from that and evaluate that before going to the market. What do you think? Now, all this while we have been talking about the past and how things shaped up. What do you think is going to happen in the next 2 years or 3 years or so in the AI scribe space and maybe in Tali AI's space?
So I think there are two camps of companies that are building in healthcare. Some of the companies are betting on clinicians can be replaced with AI. They are building solutions that is basically playing out as a nurse or a nurse practitioner or even a physician. We are in the other camp that we are hoping and dreaming about a world where the physicians remain or the clinicians would remain the center of healthcare, and healthcare would remain human. And we would have an opportunity to empower clinicians and their businesses to run smoothly and profitably, etc., so they can continue to serve patients. So the vision I have for Tali is that, we say it in our company documents and assets, that like more effective, more accessible, and human healthcare for everybody. This could be achieved through advancements in more AI tools, etc. It could be through innovation through the processes in the clinics, etc. There's so many opportunities, I think we touched on billing, we touched on the upfront of the clinic, where, believe it or not, we struggle to get appointments from our physicians, but then the rate of no-shows is so high that physicians have to pay for a solution that reduces the number of no-shows, so they don't lose money on their time. There's so many issues you can solve, and yes, our vision is to to empower and enable physicians moving forward.
On that note, I would like to ask, Tali Ai right now is an AI scribe, working on audio and text, right? So, what do you think is the future of, AI scribes in healthcare with maybe multimodal AI? What do you think about that? What's Tali Ai thinking about that?
I think it's interesting and it is exciting. My guess and my bet is that the problem it solves is not going to be as significant as the first generation of AI scribe solving. So the adoption won't be as fast. And again, my bet is that it's going to be similar to how, like a few years ago, or even now, the whole world has moved to much more advanced technologies, and healthcare is still using faxes and paper, etc. It might be that in so many other areas of the world we have moved to multimodal rooms and meetings and everything, and in healthcare we're still lagging, because I can't imagine that the problem it solves would be significant enough to move healthcare, at least the healthcare we know today.
Interesting that we are talking about multimodal AI and also with Tali AI. You said when they start, when Tali AI is being used in a doctor's office, the consent is first taken before that is put in play. How is Tali AI, seeing the regulations or change in regulations that's happening in the healthcare space? Is it on a positive note that you are seeing things happening?
We had to be part of a lot of conversations with the provinces and on the federal side as well, on what should be a reasonable reaction to this technology that physicians are adopting, whether regulatory catches up with it or not. Like in hospitals, physicians were using Tali regardless of the hospital approving it or not. They were just having it on the phone. I'm using it, I don't care. So it was one of those cases that regulatory really had to catch up fast. So I think there's still a lot of gray area for that people don't know, like, is this the line? And I think with regulatory, it's always the case. With AI, I think it's a little more exaggerated. But the speed at which the regulatory has moved, I think, also surprised everybody. Like if I were to guess, I would guess a much slower response, but like Ontario moved really fast. The federal government moved really fast. We are part of some provincial deals in Canada as well. They put it behind themselves, because if they knew if they don't catch up, it wouldn't. They would miss the boat.
Yeah, we've always been playing catch up in the regulatory space for a while, and for a change, it's happy. It's glad to hear that they're doing things on in a faster manner. What do you think, or where do you think Tali AI is going to be in the next 2 years or so?
I'm hoping that Tali would be an end-to-end assistant for clinicians, covering a lot more of their workflows, as I said, from the beginning of the flow, where patients are coming to the clinic, taking care of their, getting their background history, summarizing that for the clinician that actually meets them, merging that into the AI scribe that it is today, that takes care of the admin work while the patient and the doctor are meeting, and then the follow-up task of send this form, send that referral, etc., taking care of the billing, and also the communication asynchronously with the patient before they come back to the visit with them. All of these are different point solutions that some clinics have access to, some others don't, and we see the opportunity for that single platform that takes care of all of that end-to-end for clinicians.
Perfect. So I'm so excited to see where Tali AI, when it's going to be an end-to-end solution, and being in the market for the long game. Ladies and gentlemen, Mahshid Yassaei. And we now open the floor for some questions.
Thank you for the discussion. Question for Mahshid. I noticed there's a lot of emphasis for physicians and clinicians. How do you explore mental health care professionals and how the AI squad might work in that domain?
Yeah, we have, when we say clinician, we mean mental health, physical therapy, all the other areas. We have had a lot of organic interest from mental health professionals, and mental health is a big part of primary care. We know and acknowledge that to even support a family physician, you need to have a good support for a lot of visits that are actually mental health visits. I think there are, and I would expect that there would be specialized solutions that will be built, or if they're not already, for mental health. And even in that case, for psychiatrists separate from social workers, separate from psychologists, I see the workflows are different, the type of conversations are different. For us, it's secondary to family physicians, which is the biggest part of our market.
And as a follow-up question to that, in the early days of apps, how do you navigate client confidentiality or perhaps physicians that are less willing and open to the adoption because of data privacy or governance challenges?
In a lot of majority of cases, physicians are the custodian of data, so they should make the decision whether they trust this piece of technology or not. That's why we actually got a lot of the certifications from third parties, like SOC 2 Type 2, that regularly monitors not just our technology, but all of our processes and training of employees, etc., to make sure we maintain those certificates. These certificates usually mean something to the buyers, but also through the integrations that we do with TELUS and QHR, they do a massive review of security privacy before partnering up. So all of these are adding more to the trust building that we need to do with the physician. In the case that the physician still doesn't trust this, there is a version where you don't need to actually record the patient voice. We let the physician actually talk to us, and we take care of their documentation. So after the patient has left the room, they can say, well, this patient was X and Y and Z, and these were the problems, etc., and we take care of the documentation. Because usually, and the reason we need to take the consent is the sensitivity is that it is the patient voice, which is an additional identifier. And also a lot of the PIIs or identifiers might be mentioned during the visit accidentally that they might want to protect if the physician would just give us a summary anonymously without any reference to who the patient was.
At the beginning of the discussion, you mentioned the lack of accuracy of LLMs. And now, having worked with it for quite a while, I'm interested in hearing from you the degree of accuracy, and keeping in mind that doctors by nature are very conservative individuals, very risk averse, especially when it comes to their charting. And that's where I'm, because I'm used to there's recruiting doctors, I know their mindset. So I'm wondering how they build trust and are able to confide that in the system that the accuracy is maintained.
Great question. And it's important that accuracy means different things to different people. When somebody says, what's the accuracy of your voice to text? I usually respond back like, for whom? For me, the accuracy is going to be different than it is for you or another person, based on the noise in the room, based on our accent, etc. Let alone the documentation that every physician usually has their own type. Like I write my sentences like this. I actually don't put a dot at the end of my sentence, etc. So, and that is one of the areas where, as I was saying, that maybe a new player in the space said, oh, it's easy, I can do it. And then you actually put it into the market and start learning about all the complications. So something we have spent a lot of time on is just very sharp and comprehensive customization toolkit for physicians, so they can say, this is exactly how I want my notes to be reflected in the patient chart. And then we have a lot of different ways they can give us feedback if this is actually reflecting the changes they wanted, and they would adjust over time. But still, it's very hard to say that this, like, we measure accuracy by the number of edits physician make to the note before putting it to the patient chart. And it's very hard to get to that 100% where a physician never touches the note. And there's always, some physicians do, but most physicians have so many preferences, as you said, and they're so picky that it's a very difficult challenge, actually.
You might have already answered this, but on the PII side, is the data going to the cloud? The audio, is it?
Not the audio. Okay. The audio is immediately dropped after the transcription is generated, but all the other information is stored on the cloud.
Okay, I got it. And then the other question I had was in terms of the regulations around that. Is there any difference in like Ontario versus the rest of Canada?
A little bit. For the most part, they're very similar. But there might be, Quebec is usually different than the rest of the world. We're actually going through another whole process specifically for Quebec. But for all the other provinces, they're very, very similar.
And aren't doctors like patient management systems, like, are they starting to integrate similar features? Are you seeing competition in that area?
We are their partner. We are integrating to their solution. So some EMRs decided to make an acquisition and have it integrated as part of their EMR, but the majority of the larger EMRs like TELUS and QHR, they're still partnering up with vendors like us.
Do you expect that to change, and how do you like deal with that?
We are preparing for that. I don't know if I should expect it or not. It's very hard to estimate another big company's moves in the next year or two. But we are looking at that as something that we're preparing for.
Just a continuation from the earlier question. It appears to me that this integration is actually a competitive advantage, right? So do you see the larger the patient management systems like TELUS that you're talking about, are they moving to an open API type of an approach where they are looking at integrating multiple partners? Because I would assume that somebody like TELUS would want a level playing field, so to speak, right? So have multiple people compete and the best solution win rather than one custom integration.
They have not done it in the past. Whether this is going to be the first opportunity that convinces them to move to an open API or not, maybe. But even if they make the decision as we speak, it will take them another 3-4 years to, I think in our space, the market is so dynamic and so many things are happening that everything is a window of opportunity. You cannot bet on anything as, this is an opportunity forever. And this is the same thing in terms of our relationship with the EMRs. It's a window of opportunity that we're trying to maximize.
And right now, is it a wearable device for the physician?
No, there's no hardware. So any default microphone of their machine or their laptop would record the conversation.
Wonderful.
Yes, we have a mobile app.
Thank you for sharing all these insights on how this is impacting like the day-to-day of the physicians. And I was wondering if you consider or are considering, I think you touched upon that in the later discussion on the patient side. So how can this tool also maybe help to transcribe into a patient-friendly language all these reports that we usually get and we don't really understand?
Already generate a patient-friendly summary of the visit that the physician can request. Let's say I want this in simple language. And they can also say which language. So my doctor might decide to write my patient summary in Farsi because I don't speak a good English. So that is also a capability. And then if there is a patient portal, they can just pass it to the patient portal. If not, they can just email it to the patient. So that capability is there, better giving the patient an actual endpoint or a mobile app so they can manage their notes. We don't have that. And I don't think it will come the next 6 or 8 months. Our approach is go through providers. If at some point we see that this is an imminent opportunity then it simplifies the provider's workflow, we might give them a mobile app as well.
Hi, thank you for doing this. Very interesting. So I just had a follow-up question on the questions around note-taking and sort of onus. It seems that overall right now, as it's structured, the onus is on the physician or the clinician to kind of make sure that their notes are accurate. Do you see sort of a world where maybe it's too far down the line, but do you see a world where, let's say, the standard of care such that, AI scribes are kind of integrated into standard of care such that it's ordinary course for the physician to use it, and they don't necessarily have to just, go back to the note, double check it, to make sure it kind of satisfies, appropriate note taking.
My understanding is that it's not just about healthcare in this specific use case, and in legal cases, like for lawyers, for other cases as well, we need to have our legal system needs to have somebody, a person, accountable. And I think the gap between us and having AI accountable is not short. And the main reason also being that if you want to make somebody accountable, there should be cases where they actually suffer. AI doesn't suffer from anything. So hold them accountable for something. There's no consequence. If, there are some philosophical questions around how AI could or could not be accountable.
So as more and more people elect to have surgeries in the outpatient centers, and becomes a volume game, and it's definitely a scheduling nightmare. Do you think there's any value in taking your application into the OR and capturing any data there?
We have some organic cases where a surgeon is using the AI in the surgery room. The workflow is a little different because as they're doing the surgery, they would have to talk loud as what they're doing. Sometimes they do because there is a nurse or an assistant, they are talking to them, but actually narrating everything they're doing is a little bit of a difference in workflow. Again, I know some of our physicians are using Tali in OR, but it's one of the least adopted areas of healthcare in terms of the use of AI scribe because it's not that many conversations happening naturally.
Thank you, Mahshid. Have a big round of applause.